meeting for June 14th, 2023. Jessica, will you please take roll?
Felista Monteblanco.
Here.
Barbie Miner.
Here.
Alfredo Moreno.
I'm here.
Heidi Edwards.
Here.
Tia Ping.
Here.
Thank you. Do we have any action resulting from executive session?
Yes, we do. I move that the Board of Directors authorize the acquisition of land in the southeast quadrant of the district for the price discussed in executive session, subject to the standard due diligence review and approval by the general manager or designee.
Thank you, Tia. Do we have a second?
This is Heidi. I second.
Thank you. Jessica, can you please take roll?
Alfredo Moreno.
Yes.
Barbie Miner.
Yes.
Heidi Edwards.
Yes.
Tia Ping.
Yes.
Felista Monteblanco.
Yes. Thank you. Next up, agenda item number 14, election of officers for fiscal year 23-24. So we have 3 positions, president, secretary, and secretary pro temp. I would love to hear nominations. Let's go with president first. Well, I will now open the floor for nominations for president for fiscal year 23-24.
Perfect. And I would like to nominate Alfredo for president for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would love to second. This is Barbie. And I would love to third.
Okay, and we can do all the nominations as one vote.
Sure, I think that'd be fine.
Okay. Well, then I would also like to nominate Barbie Miner for secretary for fiscal year 2023 or 2023-24. Yeah.
This is Heidi. I will second, and she has done a fabulous job as secretary this fiscal year. So thank you, Barbie, for your service. And again.
Do we have nominations for secretary pro temp? I'm gonna nominate Tia Ping for secretary pro temp.
I'm going to second that.
I always say that wrong. Tia, how do you feel about that?
That's totally fine. Sounds good.
This is Heidi. I'll second Tia for secretary pro temp.
Perfect. Are there any other nominations? Okay, sorry. Oh my gosh, I have so many tabs open. Okay. So that's Alfredo for president, Barbie for secretary, and Tia for secretary pro temp. Jessica, is that enough for a vote?
Sure, let me call a vote just real quick. Tia Ping.
Yes.
Heidi Edwards.
Yes.
Alfredo Moreno.
Yes.
Barbie Miner.
Yes.
Felista Monteblanco.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for Jessica for giving us very helpful talking points on how to handle that professionally. Next up, we have several proclamations. We have Juneteenth, LGBTQIA Pride Month, and as Park and Recreation Month next month. So we will kick it off with Juneteenth. Whereas President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, that established that all enslaved people in Confederate states in rebellion against the Union shall be then forever free, and
whereas the 13th Amendment formally abolished slavery in the United States and was signed by President Lincoln on February 1st, 1865, and ratified by a sufficient number of states on December 6, 1865, ensuring that, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States, end quote, and
whereas, in reality, the Emancipation Proclamation did not instantly free any enslaved people, and the proclamation only applied to places under Confederate control and not to slaveholding border states or rebel areas under Union control, and
whereas Juneteenth, short for June 19th, marks the day in 1865 when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and to ensure that all enslaved people be freed a full 2+ years after the Emancipation Proclamation. and
Whereas in reality, the work to abolish slavery took decades, and there are documented instances of Black Americans continuing to be enslaved into the 1900s. And
Whereas a century and a half later, June 19th has a special meaning to Black Americans and is recognized as the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the US. And
Whereas Juneteenth commemorates freedom for Black Americans, and
Whereas THPRD recognizes that Juneteenth is an important day for Black Americans and for the nation and is part of our history. And
whereas THPRD recognizes the lasting legacies of systemic racism and oppression and how they are still impacting people's lives today. And
whereas the contributions, stories, and experiences of Black Americans are historically marginalized and minimized, highlighted by the fact that many are unaware the atrocities that lasting legacy of slavery continued for decades after it was outlawed. And
whereas THPRD respects and acknowledges this day as a reminder of the work that's been done to tear down systems of oppression and the reality that it is imperative the work continue because we still have a long way to go. And
whereas Juneteenth is an occasion to recognize and further disrupt THPRD's role in longstanding systemic racism, to take responsibility in creating a more just, welcoming, and inclusive park district, and to uphold the values of advancing racial equity.
now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District does hereby declare June 19th, 2023 as Juneteenth, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
thank you. And thank you to the staff who wrote that. Next up, it is Pride Month. So we have a Pride proclamation. Whereas the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District is committed to ensuring all individuals have the opportunity to play, learn, and explore, and are dedicated to diversity, equity, inclusion, and mutual respect for everyone we serve. And
whereas we believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, and our community is stronger with the inclusion of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQIA+ community members. And
whereas THPRD stands with LGBTQIA+ community members and is committed to removing barriers to participation to ensure everyone feels welcome, included, and able to express themselves fully within THPRD parks and services. And
whereas we are committed to eradicating discrimination and helping bring opportunities for health and wellness, social equity, and access to safe parks and recreation for all.
now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District does hereby declare the month of June 2023 as LGBTQIA+ Pride Month, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote the observance.
thank you, and happy Pride, and hope to see many of you at the parade. Next up, the Park and Recreation Month proclamation. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, and voters felt so strongly about the importance of Parks and Rec that they voted in 1955 to establish the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to provide dedicated parks and recreation services. And
whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to our quality of life, ensuring our health and wellness, and contributing to our economic and environmental well-being. And
whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for people experiencing disabilities, and improve our mental, emotional, and physical health. And
Whereas parks and recreation programs are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and
Whereas parks and recreation programs provide the opportunity to build community and bring our incredibly diverse population together to share experiences, learn from each other, and build cross cultural connections that strengthen the fabric of our community. And
whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect our natural habitats, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers, and preserve the ecological beauty of these areas for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And
whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Park and Recreation Month.
Now, therefore, the Board of Directors of the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District does hereby declare the month of July 2023 as Park and Recreation Month, and do urge all those in the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District to support and promote this observance.
thanks, everybody. And I want to share what some of what the district is doing to celebrate. They're hosting a series of activities and events in honor of Juneteenth, Pride Month, and Parks and Recreation Month. So just some high-level highlights. Garden Home Recreation Center, Harmon Swim Center, Elsie Stir Center, and the Babette Hornstein Tennis Center all have dedicated display boards for both Juneteenth and Pride Month. Thrive staff are incorporating Juneteenth arts and crafts and storyboard activities into after-school programs this month. We have multiple Pride events all month throughout the district. Pride Dance Party at Conestoga earlier this month, as well as Glow in the Park at the Rock Creek Trail, at a Pride Pool Party at Harmon. Coming up, we have Garden Home Rec Center will host a Pride Night. June 17th, Cedar Hills Rec Center will have Pump It Up with Pride and Family Pride in the park. THPRD will also be at Pride Beaverton on June 25th at City Park in downtown Beaverton, as well as in the parade. And July is Parks and Rec month. Everything we do is Park and Rec. Please come visit your favorite park, enjoy a natural area, explore a new trail, or connect with your favorite sport or activity at one of our rec centers. Thanks, everybody. So agenda item 6 is our budget hearing. So I will now open the budget hearing for adoption of the fiscal year 2023-24 budget, levying taxes and making appropriations. And we have a staff presentation from Jared.
Good evening, President Monteblanco and members of the board. I am Jared Isaacson, Finance Director for the district, and am here this evening to request the adoption of the fiscal year 2023-24 budget and appropriation of funds, as well as the property tax levies for the district. The budget was approved by the Budget Committee at the May 18th Budget Committee meeting, and there have not been any changes to the budget since its approval. The budget appropriations totaling $160,754,387. Of that, the total general fund appropriations is $83,024,581. The district's property tax levy for the general fund is a rate of $1.30.73 per thousand of assessed value, and the bonded debt fund property tax levy is at $8,626,616. I would like to give special thanks to the Budget Committee for all their hard work in reviewing the budget document and asking some great questions and following up on other things that they have interest in. I would also like to give a special thanks to all of those on the finance team and throughout the district that helped put together a great budget document and continue to work on the budget year after year, in making sure that we get it done timely and accurately and put together for the committee as well as the board. And that's the staff report.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you to your entire team and everyone who worked hard on not only a beautiful document, but a thorough document with great detail and very pretty. So thank you.
Thank you.
My understanding is that we have not received any public comment for this portion for the budget hearing. So I'll now close the budget hearing. And do we have do we have an action? Do we have a motion from the team?
Yes, this is Barbie, and I move that the Board of Directors approve Resolution 2023-05 to adopt the 2023-24 budget, levy ad valorem taxes, and make appropriations.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Heidi. I'll second the motion.
Jessica, can you please take roll?
Alfredo Moreno,
Yes.
Tia Ping,
Yes.
Heidi Edwards,
Yes.
Barbie Minor,
Yes.
Lisa Monteblanco.
Yes. Thank you very much for everyone's hard work in that, both as volunteers and as staff. Excited to move into the next fiscal year and close up this one. Next up, we have audience time, and I understand that we have a person who has asked to request to speak, so looking forward to hearing from them.
That's correct. We have Evan Davis joining us this evening.
Welcome, Evan.
Hi there. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course. If you, this is Barbie's job. I'm gonna let Barbie do it.
That's quite all right. Welcome. Good evening, Mr. Davis. I think, Jessica, if you would be able to keep our time, I know that we do have a timed response if you can help keep us honest, but Mr. Davis, I think if we're ready to go, would love to hear from you.
Okay. Go ahead, Jessica. I think you've got my PowerPoint there. Yeah. So this is in regards to our donation. We basically purchased a Track B, or Lot B as it's referred to, as part of the Heighton Meadows Park, which is basically Southwest 135th and Shoals Ferry. Our house actually backs up to that lot there. We purchased that lot. It's basically just green space, and it backs right up to Track A, which is also Heighton Meadows Park. Jessica, next slide. We think that it's a great donation to THPRD. Both, obviously, we received this letter. You can see that lower section there, that lower little triangle is actually represented, which is outside of the green line, is actually what Lot B is. So we think that would be a great donation to THPRD to manage it, to manage the blackberries and invasive species that come in there, and continue the wildlife that we see as we look out our back windows, and we see coyotes and deer and raccoons, and it's just wonderful. Our kids love it. It also helps the mission for THPRD to maintain and grow natural areas and to serve the community. So it's always a good thing. Next slide. The other thing that we would like to request is a permanent easement. When we purchased our house in 2019, we were given this great big backyard that the previous owner had fenced in. That was one of the greatest selling points of the house, which is this big backyard backing right up into the green space. The owner at the time had told us that Lot B, which he said a tract of land, but Lot B was outside of our fence line on the other side, and it had been purchased by his neighbor just to our south as part of, basically just to stop them from dropping in a whole bunch of condos there and kind of ruining that nature area. So we thought that was great. When our neighbor passed away in 2021, they came to us and said, "Hey, we'd like to sell this." And through a long story short, we found out that our backyard was not really our backyard. If you can go on, there's no precedent. Yeah, so this is kind of what it is. That there's a Lot A and a Lot B. Lot A is the Heighton Meadows. Lot B is the other piece there. And what we would request humbly is we donate the entirety of Lot B, with the exception of that strip that goes through our backyard and a small section that's within our fence line of Lot A. And just as a last slide there, Jessica, if you don't mind. So this is our backyard on the left. You can see that's from the original real estate listing. And this is actually how we found out. This is what it actually breaks down to in terms of our backyard. There's Lot B slicing right through the middle of our backyard, and then Lot A is at the top side of it. Well, that's my timer, but we humbly request that we donate Lot B and just be able to retain our Lot A and a permanent easement, basically, so that we retain everything in our fence line and THPRD gets everything else.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We appreciate
Thank you for your time.
Yes, we appreciate you coming in very much. As you can imagine, we have discussed this in executive session as it is a land issue. We do believe that creating this. We're mindful and concerned about the precedent that this would create. We know this scenario is very unique, which as a result has led to robust conversations. But ultimately, it will create a precedent that we are not comfortable with as a board of directors. And this is the direction that we have provided our general manager, Doug. And so Doug is happy to continue to have conversations with you. I'm so appreciative of how much you love the district and that you take care of your property and that you are so cordial. It is a lovely quality. So thank you. But ultimately, we feel pretty strongly that we're not comfortable with this.
I understand the district's take on it. My only thought is, in terms of a precedent, I guess, it would be very rare if I don't think it would ever be a case where, you know, someone wants to donate land to THPRD and, you know, the land in question is adjacent to existing THPRD property that would then kind of merge in together to be managed as one full piece. And then we just take a little tiny piece. I mean, it's 3,000 square feet versus 12,000 square feet that would be, you know, reclaimed by the district.
I certainly cannot argue that this is a unique situation. I'll let Doug take it from here, and I want to be mindful. So we allow the public 3 minutes, and then
Sure.
I can't really we can't have a conversation. I'm
I
happy to have a
understand. I
conversation
understand.
later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, and certainly, I think it'd be helpful to follow up, Mr. Davis, because I do, you know, as uniquely as it sounds, apparently when you have the color of my hair, you'd be amazed what you thought would never happen again. We've had some unusual circumstances, and I think, you know, respectfully, this is the part we play for the public is protecting public property.
Sure.
But we can have more discussion.
Okay.
Let's just plan on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time tonight. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, we have board time. Do folks have any committee liaison updates or anything that they've been working on that they'd like to share? I don't know who went first. I think it says Barbie went first. Okay, Barbie.
Sweat. Yes, I would just like to give a little update. We had an opportunity through Mayor Beatty's office to do an intergovernmental lunch and get together with representatives from the Beaverton City Council, representatives from the Beaverton School District, and of course, THPRD. And I just want to echo and provide appreciation and visibility to the fact that, you know, our community walks through spaces and lives their lives without knowing where THPRD boundaries begin, where BSD begins, where City Council and the City of Beaverton begins and ends, and these types of forums for us to get together and talk through resolutions that will benefit the community together and how we can best pool our resources. And in this particular instance, the conversation was centered around community spaces and finding an opportunity for us to up-level and what could we do to better provide information easily accessible to our community if they want to book our park shelters, book something at Garden Home, etc. But having a view of all of our spaces, again, referencing that our community doesn't exist within these nice boundaries. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so grateful for these relationships and the willingness of other elected officials to come together and to brainstorm and bring best practices together. It certainly feels like all hands on deck. You know, they say more hands, light work. Is that how the saying goes? So just wanted to comment on that and also give a shout out. Obviously, this is a little bit personal here, but congratulations to the class of 2023. So graduation in Beaverton School District just happened. So lots of students out there, and just want to congrats to everyone on their major milestone and accomplishment, and looking forward to the youth continuing on with their great work. That's it from my side.
Heidi, I know you were also at the event. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, Barbie summed it up quite nicely. And I think it's really impressive to know that between the school district and the city, the park district, we have probably the most number of sites and locations and opportunities for folks to either congregate or rent a space. And so I know our team will be working, our staff will be working closely with the mayor's office and Beaverton School District to see how we can put that out there in a more just a more visible way for community members to be able to do that. So it was a wonderful opportunity. It has been a relatively slow month on the front of any committees, so I don't have anything more than that to share.
Thank you, Heidi. Alfredo?
All right. I did want to share a little bit about the Tualatin Hills Park Foundation. Pleased to announce, recently acquired a couple of, earned a couple of grants. One from the Autzen Foundation for $11,500, one from Nike Impact for $10,000 that will go to Splash for Life. And really wanted to give a special thanks and just express gratitude to the THPRD staff and board who have taken advantage of the opportunity to donate to the foundation. I think it's just at many organizations, and I think hopefully increasingly so at THPRD, the foundations work in such synchronicity with the organization and are really the lifeblood of so much of the special work that's done. And I think the foundation for Tualatin Hills um, uh, is doing some good work, has some good things ahead, has some incredible programs that they champion, and so I look forward to being able to share that with the public, but also with the staff itself. So so wanted to mention that. Also, and I honestly waffled back and forth on whether I was going to say anything about this, but I I did read the news reports that touched on the details of the murder of Milana Lee, and I had to say, really, what I'll stay high level and just say, that I'm extremely grateful for the first responders, Beaverton Police, who were involved in that case. And then I will just say to everyone at THPRD and beyond, the work we do with youth, I've said this before in other instances that hit closer to home, but I think creating that spirit of belonging from a young age to everything that you all do in small ways to make a young person feel like they're more connected to their community, I think creates ripples. And while there's nothing that will cure every instance of violence caused by social ills or mental health, I just had to get that message out, as that's what I thought after I read that the work that we do in small but impactful ways in collaboration with others, it makes a difference. So keep leaning into the work that you're doing with youth. Let's keep looking for ways to expand our opportunities to engage youth on the margins, who may both be victims and or perpetrators in the future, so we can make a difference. So thank you all for giving me a minor soapbox there, but that was just on my mind. So
Thank you for always being so thoughtful and being your authentic self, Alfredo, and sharing what you're thinking with us. It's a lovely quality in you and a peer. And I think Pride Month is the perfect time to be talking about these issues, right? Because we know there's a particular population that's really hurting, right? There's lots of populations hurting, but Pride is an opportunity to highlight our LGBTQIA plus community. But thank you for bringing that as a gentle reminder to us. I'll share that I gave testimony for Senate Bill 775, which we haven't gotten to talk about as a team, but THPRD wanted to engage a little bit. It's a a bill focused on soil and water conservation districts. And in order to serve on one of those boards, you have to own 10 acres of land. And when that was written a long, long time ago, that made perfect sense. And I don't think, well, it made some sense, and the intent is questionable. But in these urban areas where soil and water conservation districts exist, not many people own 10 acres of land. And so THPRD wanted to lend our support of removing that barrier. And so I spoke to what it means to have a diverse board with different backgrounds, and what it means for the patrons. So it was a pleasure to get to do that in solidarity with another special district who's working hard to help that pass. And then I also just want to mention that I finally got to see in real life the API murals at HMT, which are gorgeous. I feel like part of me is just like, I need to like yell it from the rooftops. Does everyone know how amazing our murals are? They're just so gorgeous, and they're so welcoming and inclusive, and like, is it? I mean, particularly was moved by the Latino ones, but I mean, it's just like, this is just like a reminder that like there's a place for everyone and everyone's welcome, and to see yourself reflected in art is so profound. And even if it's just going to tennis camp, right? But to see your family in an image, like it's beautiful. I know Holly and her team and so many others do that work, and it is so appreciated and beautiful and wonderful. Any other things folks want to share? With that, I want to take a moment to honor our peer Heidi. It is Heidi's last meeting, and I'm sure that comes with really mixed emotions, but mostly sad. So I want to take a moment and honor Heidi's 4 years of service. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Heidi when we ran a big campaign together and worked really hard to help her earn this seat on the board and talk to patrons. And since then, I've appreciated so much of the knowledge and the thoughtfulness that she brings to this. I love how she holds us accountable. I love that she pushes. I especially appreciate all the attention you brought to the foundation and the accountability you brought to the board about, y'all, we need to engage more. You need to be paying more attention about what the foundation is doing and what it can do. And you were a loud drum, and you made sure that we were talking about it. And it wasn't a big topic of conversation within this body. And because of you and because of your passion for it, it became one. And I think that's a testament to your leadership and your leadership style. And when you care about, when you share with us the things you care about. I also want to highlight that Heidi brought so much knowledge around negotiating and labor and all these little things that at least I did not have any background in. And I so appreciated that knowledge that she brought to spaces, that she shared that perspective and her lived experience. So thank you, Heidi, for everything that you've done over these last 4 years. You have so much to be proud of. We are so appreciative of you and your leadership, and getting to know you and your family, and how much you love the district. I'll let Doug say a few words, and then I'll have open the floor. Go ahead.
Let me go off mic first, or on mic, I guess as the case may be. You know, it's pretty unique. I just, during our little break between executive session here, I was over at the tennis center because we have a big pickleball tournament that's about ready to launch, some 300 odd players. And very uniquely, I walked by the murals and I see a bunch of people just looking at them. And you know, during your tenure, Heidi, that's what happened. All of the murals happened during your tenure. And I still remember my wife and I attended the Sunset Park one, and you were there. You contributed art into that one. You spoke at that event. And, you know, it was, for my wife and I, we walked away with, this is something you care about. This is something that impacts you. And thus it impacts our community all the time. I think of the comments Alfredo just made, and your line of work that you have chosen, how you impact youth at a really critical time in their lives. You know, the openness for the decision-making process that is in front of them. You know, that's a special relationship, and you honor that. You've honored it with the district because you're such a phenomenal. Felice and I were talking earlier. You're such a great listener. You seldom do what too many of us, myself included, do, is get to talk first, but you listen first. I just want to thank you for that. We're going to be making the Park District a donation to BCC Foundation on your behalf. And because they have a lot of great opportunities within the foundation, you and I need to talk to figure out where you want it to go. But thank you for your service.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. That's very touching.
Would any of my peers like to make Heidi cry more? Barbie, go ahead.
Well, it's not my intention to make you cry more, but I would certainly like to give you your flowers at this time. Heidi, I certainly wish that we had an opportunity to be in person more, but I can certainly, just in the 2 years, thank you for welcoming me to this, for being a resource when needed, for your leadership style. I have to echo Doug's sentiments. My number one thing that I have observed from you truly is your advocacy for our youth. And there are moments in time where I believe that I'm centered and you'll say something and I will go, golly. And in that way, I really want to thank you. It's bizarre how the timing of this has lined up, especially with Alfredo's comments, but our youth, especially in these past 3 years, have been going through a tremendous amount with COVID, et cetera. And your ability to keep their needs centered and ensure for us that we are thinking about the full range and spectrum of how we show up and serve our community is rather impactful. So kudos to you on your service. I really thank you for leading the charge. And I know this is just goodbye for now. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Barbie. Tia?
Hi, Heidi. I just want to share the first time I met Heidi or saw her. I didn't even meet her. I was actually sitting when she was trying to be appointed as a board member, and I remember listening to you talk, do your interview, and I remember texting other people like, "She is a shoo-in. She needs to be on the board. Like, there's no other person that they should pick." And unfortunately, at the time, they picked somebody else. But that did not bring you down. That lit a fire under you. It actually lit a fire under me. And I was so lucky enough to run my first campaign with you, our first campaign together. And I just so appreciated am so appreciative of that experience to go through with you, to go through running a crazy campaign, to be able to go through these first 4 years together with you has just been amazing. I just want to recognize you and tell you that we see you. We see how your motherless or your mothering nature transforms everything into being a mother to your own children and running and being elected to being a mother to our community and doing all of this for THPRD, to being a mother in your job and helping to raise all of those college students and get them on a good path, all those high school students too. So it's just an amazing quality that you have, and you just give and give, and I'm so excited to that you maybe have a little bit of time off. I'm sure you'll never stop giving, but I'm just so thankful. Thank you for inspiring me. I definitely wouldn't be here, I think, if you if we hadn't done this together, and I just so appreciate you, and I'm just in awe of you, Heidi. So thank you so much for giving us your 4 years and being here with us.
Thank you, Tia. Alfredo?
Well, Heidi, you and I now only overlap 8 or 9 hours a day, so we'll miss that extra time together. But I will just say briefly that I know Heidi is an advocate for people. Thoughtful, thoughtful remarks, independent thought. And one thing in my brief time I've really appreciated is Heidi has a willingness to tackle the government necessity, but maybe not super exciting, board committees and things that we have to do to get things done. The trainings that some of us haven't been able to get to yet, but doing the work of the job, the government, not the big flowery speeches all the time, but just we need someone to be on the audit committee, and yeah, I'm your person. I'm going to do it, and here's we all know that you're giving it your best eyes and thought and analysis, and and so that's awesome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for helping to bring me up to speed, and job well done.
So wonderful. Heidi, did you want to say anything?
Oh, well, thank you. So touching and really bittersweet. Like, yeah. Just a couple of things. I'm so proud of the work that we get to do together. And it has been it's been a privilege for me, being a patron of the Park District for over 25 years now, and raising my children and having homes in the community, and to be able to serve like this was really such an honor. Whether it be at the local level, at the state level, nationally, just the work that we were able to do to advocate for what our needs were for the district and our community members. But I'm just so in awe. Like, I've learned so much. I think probably we all have, like, about the inner workings of the work of the district. It is so multifaceted and complex, and like the work that our staff do is incredibly honorable, whether it's taking care of the grounds or greeting patrons or teaching swimming or in leadership management. There's just a lot of enthusiasm and professionalism and this welcoming nature that I'm just so very proud to be a part of and to live within. So I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm not moving. I'll still be around, little maybe special projects here and there. But I really appreciate, being able to serve with the four of you, and prior to that, Wendy Kroger and Ashley Hartmeyer Prigg, and those who followed us. I mean, there's a long history from 1955 of people not just on the board, but who have served as staff, who've really made this district what it is. And I'm really excited for the future of the district, and excited to be, continue to be a patron. Um, I'm also excited to just take a little bit time back, and not be so super overly involved, but don't ever hesitate to ask me for anything, because I'm happy to support the district and the efforts, and will always champion our causes and the work that's being done. So thank you. Didn't expect to have tears. I don't even have tissue around. So and thank you to those that, whether you're on the call tonight, just all staff, and to our patrons, thank you for trusting us and continuing to participate in what we do, and what we want to provide for our community. So thank you. Very touched. And thank you, Doug, for we can talk about the contribution. That's touching to me, because my work with the college is also very important, as you know, and I love fundraising. And not many people say that, but that's one of my things that I really love doing, whether it's for the college or the Park District or whomever, like, how we can support the needs of our community is really important. So thank you. It's very touching.
Thank you, Heidi. You will be missed, and we'll try to make the last bits of these meetings bittersweet and fun. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 9, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Yes, we do. I move that the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Tia. Do we have a second?
Alfredo, I can second.
Perfect. Jessica, will you please take roll?
Barbie Minor,
Sorry, yes.
Heidi Edwards,
Yes.
Alfredo Moreno,
Yes.
Tia Ping,
Yes.
Lisa Monteblanco.
Yes. Before we go to unfinished business, I just want to highlight item E, the resolution amending district investment policy. I'd like to kind of put a plug in for a future maybe work session. You know, fun fact for anyone tuning in, there's no requirement to be an elected official besides like being 18 and being registered to vote. And so when I look at things like a long investment policy, I think sometimes it's easy to have like imposter syndrome, right? Like, maybe do I understand all these pieces? But here's what I do understand 100%. My values and the board's values. So what's important to me is, do our values as an organization matching our investment policies? And I don't know the answer to that. And I do so appreciate all the work that went into this. And I'm glad we have something, a new foundation to move from. And I also want to keep talking about this issue. So I'm hopeful that we could have a deeper conversation about, are we investing in places that align with our values? As an organization committed to protecting natural resources, are we investing in companies? Are we investing in gas stations? I don't know. I can't answer that question. And as a result, like, I just think there's a learning opportunity there. So just want to put a plug for that for our future president. So
Very subtle.
very subtle, yes. Next up, we have unfinished business. General manager's report.
You bet. Well, we've got an update from Bruce with regard to the, climate action plan. And I think Bruce probably, it's kind of fun to put him on the spot. It's part of what I enjoy doing. But I think he probably has in his talking points already a little bit about the heat mapping coming up here shortly as well. Bruce.
Absolutely. Thanks for the introduction, Doug. I will touch on the heat mapping program, but first, just for the record, I'm Bruce Barbrash, the Park District's Nature and Trails Manager, and I'm excited to be here tonight. Many of you were back at our Joint Advisory Committee meeting in October of 2022 when we did some of the scoping work for the Climate Action Plan. And since then, staff have worked at various levels. We've worked with a consultant. We've gathered a bunch of information. And tonight, I'm going to provide you with an update and share direction on where the plan is going, and then seek feedback from you. Next slide, please. So one thing that struck me in particular as we've moved through the planning processes at various levels over the last couple of years is patrons sent us a really clear message that they want the district to be good stewards of the environment. And these are some of the direct quotes that they gave us. And what strikes me is that it's really up to our technically oriented staff to translate this vision into a functional climate action plan. And based on these interests, we've been working pretty hard. We've been trying to work efficiently as well, recognizing it's one of those topics that just seems to expand and expand. And one thing I want to clarify is that a climate action plan is different from a sustainability plan in the sense that one of the core focal points for the plan is reducing the amount of carbon and other greenhouse gases that cause warming of our atmosphere. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. So our plan, I'm going to show you kind of in broad brush strokes here. First off is the overview. Next slide. And what we're really trying to do is make sure the plan, just like the strategic plan and some of the other things we've worked on recently, is really digestible. It's easy to understand. It's easy to implement. And we also want to recognize that staff have a lot of priorities. We're a Parks and Recreation District, and what we want to do is achieve our mission in a sustainable, environmentally friendly, and socially conscious way. And so what we're going to try and do is identify owners and sequences and priorities, but we're also going to give staff a lot of flexibility about how they get to the outcomes that we're seeking. Also, because that the county and the city have plans that are more externally focused, our plan is going to focus a lot on the staff operations and the things that we offer to our patrons. And we're going to leave some of the other pieces up to those other entities. Another thing that we're going to try and do, recognizing staff are super busy, is we're going to say, what are the things that are going to produce the greatest return on our investment? What are we best at doing? And where can we make the biggest impact with the resources we have? And that's going to mean that we're really going to work hard to serve our community and to lower our footprint as we're doing so. Next slide, please. Our values are going to be an important part of our approach. Next slide. And we're going to take cues from all the documents that the board has approved in the last few months. We're going to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're going to think about our safe and welcoming piece, our financial sustainability piece, as well as our environmental stewardship values. And one of the things I'm really excited about as the plan is starting to come together, a lot of these things just naturally overlap. And so there's going to be some places we're going to make investments, we're going to save money, we're going to make good on our commitment to lowering our carbon footprint. And I'm really excited about that as we start to be more cross-disciplinary. Next slide, please. So the first major piece of the proposed plan is what's called mitigation activities. Mitigation is doing all the activities that actually can lower the amount of greenhouse gases that we put into the atmosphere. And to get more detailed, we'll go to the next slide. And here we've been working with staff at various levels. Again, we've been working with consultants to identify our major sources of emissions. And the way you can kind of think about this is every activity that we do, everything that we provide has some kind of impact elsewhere. And we're able to analyze a lot of those things through our purchasing records, through our bills from gas, electricity, and water. And we've come up with this list of 6 kind of core areas that will be the focus, that are the measurable part of our plan. So one thing we immediately saw was that we're going to try and reduce the amount of natural gas and electricity used in our facilities. And that's super important because those things have a really direct climate connection. There are also things that are projected to get more expensive over time. And so the more we can conserve and use wisely, the more we'll be able to take those dollar resources and apply them to other areas that are important to us. Our fleet is also a prime area where we see potential, some now and more later, to change what our footprint looks like, in particular by shifting our vehicles from gas powered to electric. But where electric isn't available yet or isn't quite in our cost range or whatever, we're going to try and make sure we're matching the right vehicle with the right job so that we're reducing the amount of fuel we actually use. Ultimately, we'll kind of move through these things in phases. The plan's intended to be about a 5-year process, and then we'll come back and say, where's technology now? Where are we staff-wise? Where are we financially? Another component of the measurable piece is looking at our purchasing. Our purchasing practices have impacts outside of what we directly provide, but it is something we have some control over. As I mentioned, we use a lot of water, millions and millions of gallons of water each year. And you know, that's from a variety of things like irrigating fields, filling pools, drinking, showers, all the kind of recreation things that we do, plants, etc. So we'll be looking at that. And the last piece that's pretty important and measurable is we use land in different ways to provide our services. And the more we can preserve the green in those spaces, whether that's trees, grass, shrubs, those things help to cool, to clean air, and to capture carbon ultimately. And so there's times we're going to need to develop those areas, but where we can protect as much as we can measure, hey, we're capturing and we've preserved and we provide all these other benefits by keeping the kind of green infrastructure. So I think I'm going to move on to the next section, which I like to think of the mitigation piece as sort of being the brain and the kind of real hard number side of things. On the other side of this piece is the adaptation side. And I think of this a little bit more as the hard and the people side of it, in the sense that adaptation activities help people and parks, the things that we offer in the parks, to better adapt or at least to deal with extreme weather conditions. Next slide, please. And the types of activities we're going to look at under the adaptation are things that we can readily address, whether that's with partners or whether that's things we do on our own to help people more directly. These activities won't necessarily make the climate cooler or help prevent it from getting warmer, but they'll help the people a lot. And as Doug mentioned at the outset, we're working with the Washington County Department of Health, a number of other local partners, as well as health departments from Multnomah and Clackamas County on a heat mapping project in a couple months out, about 6 weeks out from now. With the goal is we're working with volunteers and technology professionals to have electronic tools where we're going to get folks all around the 3-county area to measure morning, noon, and evening temperatures during a hotter portion of the summer, with the idea being we can see where folks need resources, whether that's some kind of cooling centers, whether that's health related care, whether that's trees in parks or trees on streets. And we've got a whole range of partners who are excited about this, and it really cuts across social, it cuts across environmental, all kinds of different health groups. And it's really thrilling to be able to see this because it's like the first step in both engaging the community, but it's also a way to really connect people to what we can offer. So for example, in this box called community resiliency, that's a really great hub for us to be able to say, hey, one thing we can do is we can offer cooling or heating shelters during these times. The education piece is one that kind of ties again across a lot of different areas in the sense that we want people to know what we're doing. We want people to know about what's available. And then where it's appropriate, we want to connect them with the ability to get engaged and to help. At the bottom of this little table, there's planning and resilient parks. And those are really looking at two sides of the same coin. What we want to be able to do is as we're building and designing new parks, we want to put them in the right places so people can get there in sustainable ways and healthy ways, whether they can walk or roll. And then we want to make sure that the parks themselves are adapted or ready for hotter, drier conditions and maybe more extreme conditions. In some cases, that might be, hey, we're going to put up shade shelters of some sort, whether that's tents or covered areas so people can play and gather and do what they need to do in changing weather conditions, I'll just say. On the far side of the adaptation activities, these are primarily natural resources oriented things, some of which are already in motion, but they do overlap into the parks. And what we see with the more extreme weather is heavier rainstorms that come at once and cause erosion and washouts. And we're looking at ways to work with partners as well as within our own facilities to say, how do we manage stormwater during these big events? Also, we're looking at what's the new palette of plants need to look like as we get drier, as we get hotter. And we also are looking at various things that we've already started is to make sure that we're reducing the risk of wildfire, both for park properties, but also for our neighbors. And so there's just this whole range of different things that we can do where we're providing service that really is kind of almost immediate. Some of the stuff, again, in the mitigation activities is super important and it's longer term. Next slide, please. So what we have coming up is we're, of course, excited to hear a bit from you about our direction. Kind of behind the scenes, we're going to start to formalize some of the studies we've done with our consultants. We're going to start to engage work groups within the park district about, hey, here are some possible roles. How might you approach this? How do you want to be engaged? And we're going to come back to advisory committees, seek a little bit more input as we get into the details a bit more. And our ultimate goal is to have some final recommendations kind of late summer or fall and some measurable outcomes. And of course, we'll come back to the board, seek feedback, and then eventually we'll come back again for final approval. Next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to take comments or answer questions that folks have.
Thank you, Bruce. Any questions? Heidi, go ahead.
Thank you, Bruce, for the presentation, and thank you also for clarifying difference between sustainability and climate impact and what we're working with there. I'm particularly excited because my peer Tia has for a very long time advocated for, the all-weather opportunities that we can offer. And if there is an
Yep.
ability for us to think about our spaces, not all spaces will be able to, but how can we alter those to offer the shade or offer, cooling centers or whatever it may be, I think is
Yep.
wonderful. But thank you for this work. I'm really excited to hear and see how it moves forward.
You're very welcome.
And Tia, thank you for continuing to voice that interest, because it is a need that we have, especially as we've seen over the past decade, especially last 5 years, especially. It seems like just the heat in the summer and how that's impacting us.
Yeah, my heart fluttered a little bit. I thought it was only just me. But
Team
yes, like
shade.
it's not even the shade, it's also the rain and the cold, like a place for people to just come together outdoors still, in all weather. So four season spaces is what is my jam right now. But Bruce, thank you for this. I love that we're focusing on this in the next coming few years. I do the biggest thing is I just want to make sure that and you mentioned measurable outcomes, and so I would be interested. I know we mentioned like carbon and like our carbon footprint. I was wondering what other measurable things we could potentially measure, because I guess that's the biggest thing of like how we can showcase how we're successful is like what are we measuring, and where are we at, and how far along, stretch goal targets, all of those kinds of things. um
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so some of the things will definitely be measurable. Like, so for example, in order to come up with some of the recommendations, we did what's called a greenhouse gas inventory. We looked at all the things we purchase, all the things that we do, and we're able to create kind of a set of bar charts, which I'll probably show you in a future presentation, that say this is basically where our impact areas are, and they're very quantifiable. Our goal, of course, is to reduce some of those down. So like a really excellent example of this is we looked at our electricity is a fairly large impact. But a year or so back, we switched from traditional electricity to the green energy program, and we immediately dropped our carbon footprint by a huge amount. As we start to reduce some of our reliance on gas in certain other areas, we'll be able to see a reduction in those charts as well. So those measures will certainly be there. The flip side is a lot of the adaptation activities, for example, volunteering to plant trees, volunteering with the heat mapping project. Those aren't things that they have demonstratable outcomes. And there's some great storytelling opportunities. There's great photos, right? There's evidence that we're doing this, but we won't measure necessarily. So it's kind of a combination approach. And I think that would appeal to different kinds of learners and stakeholders, as well as being able to tell like a whole story.
Thanks, Bruce.
Perfect, thanks.
Just one additional comment, which is a good follow-up to what you were just speaking about, Bruce. It does make me wonder how, and maybe you've spoke a little bit to this, how we can further educate our patrons and the community. Like, why don't we do this with our pools or our splash pads? Because this is the amount of water that they use. Or I'm just thinking more of the educational pieces that we can provide to the community to share with them. Why do we only mow at certain times? Or, because we are trying to reduce our footprint and our impact. So that educational out there really upfront and in public piece, I think is important. I know we do a little bit of it, but
Yep.
it might be something else for us and to, employ or intern some of our college students who want to participate in those activities and study those things, I think would be good too. So
Agree. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. I just real quick, just chiming in. I wholeheartedly agree with Heidi, and it's what was top of mind as I think about, like, in order to gain the public support, they need to understand, like, why is the grass brown?
Yep.
And encourage them to ask tough questions and realize we're spending those resources elsewhere, and what it means what it means to save water and who that benefits. So I think education has to be a critical component of this so we can get patron support.
Great.
Alfredo?
Yeah, just real quick, just I thought this seemed to be a very common sense uh, approach and plan and things that we can move on and um, I think there will always be urgency to do more and more and more, which is good. We need that urgency. But I think organization our size to have these steps that you've outlined and multiple ways to contribute internally and collaboratively is a really great start. So I was very pleased with what I saw. So thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Alfredo. Bruce, anything you need from us?
Not unless you have any change in direction or specific things you would like to see added to that outline.
I don't think so. I do want to highlight, though, thanks for all your leadership with the heat mapping. I know that's been a big project. Really excited to have that data and how we'll get to use it in big decision making and little decision making that we as a board make and that staff make. So thank you for your leadership there and all the capacity you've added to that work. Much appreciated.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's been the work of many, but it's a pleasure to do it. I'm excited.
Thanks, Bruce. Next up, we have new business. We have the natural hazard mitigation plan, which seems like a ton of work. So thank you, Mark.
Yes, I'm gonna, Mark, provide a brief background a little bit. We were without Holly this evening, but she passed on a few notes that I think are worth calling out. One is that the district has long desired and needed to get into the emergency management side of activities, particularly within the county, obviously our immediate jurisdiction areas. The challenge, of course, is having staff with solid background in the subject matter and availability. And of course, as the board's well aware, we have invested in safety services by adding staff. Angel's position, for instance, really has enabled Mark to contribute at an even higher level with regard to emergency management. He certainly has a background, as you will hear and have heard in the past. And really the collaboration with Washington County and other regional partners has, it's really kind of upped the game. I think it's enabled other agencies to see the role the Park District can play, the role the Park District should play in emergency management. It also calls out that we are now eligible for federal grants and aid for emergency preparedness investments. So it's kind of a whole new category. And of course, the work is important work. It's important work for our patrons, the role we play within the region as well. So we've received a lot of positive energy from other agencies that they see us stepping up into this role. And of course, Mark, as you will hear and see, has had a great deal to do with that. Okay, with that, Mark.
All right, thank you, Doug. And a couple of things. Thank you, Bruce, for providing a segue into some of what we're going to talk about here. And I'll confess, Felicita, that I'm probably at least partially responsible for the volume of the board packet tonight. So as you saw probably from looking at some
You'll
of
be
this
getting
stuff.
a note. It was too big. It was too long. No.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Pierce, your Safety Services Manager, and I'm just going to spend a few minutes to share kind of the overview of the recently completed Washington County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. And the plan has taken about 2 years to complete. And that 2 years, we've invested as a district several hundred hours of staff time and ended up producing, as you saw, a document that's probably close to 1,400 pages long countywide. So as you'll see on the next slide, the purpose of the plan really has been to identify natural hazards, vulnerabilities, and risks that faces Washington County, and to identify those mitigation actions that could help reduce the impact of those risks. And so a number of agencies were involved all across the county, and they included Washington County, the cities of Beaverton, Hillsborough, Tigard, Forest Grove, Sherwood, Cornelius, and North Plains, and also included Clean Water Services, the Tualatin Valley Water District, as well as THPRD. That kind of gives you a sense of why it took 2 years, probably. So some of the partnership highlights for us have included strengthening THPRD's position as a critical partner in emergency management, specifically with respect to Washington County, the city of Beaverton, Clean Water Services, and the Tualatin Valley Water District. Also included identifying some countywide climate change related projects that all of the agencies will be implementing, as well as activating many funding sources that were not previously available to the district. And so as you can see from the next slide, those funding sources include numerous state and federal heat, smoke, and wildfire grants, earthquake and power resiliency projects, cooling and shade projects, natural area restoration and preservation, as well as flood and landslide control initiatives. And while the Washington County grant funding covered the cost of the consulting firm that facilitated this 2-year process, the local agencies donated matching funds through staff hours committed to the project. And for THPRD, that included almost 300 staff hours spent. And so on the next slide, I want to be sure and thank the THPRD technical team for all of their work on this project. And that included Bruce Barbarash, Clint Bollinger, John Campbell, Mark Hockinen, Kristen Preston, Chris Roberts, David Stroud, Peter Swinton, and Keith Watson. And so that group of people were kind of the core of the project. And without them, that project would not have been possible. In addition to this team, as Doug mentioned, it's important to point out that without your willingness as a board to continuing investing in safety services, this work would not have been possible at all. So one purpose of the county-wide steering committee that you see there was to identify those natural hazards that really impact all of the jurisdictions involved. And I won't go through that, but there are 10 significant natural hazard events or categories of events that are listed in the plan. And so once that was done, the THPRD team focused on internal actions and projects. And those specific projects can be found in the THPRD annex to this plan. And so each jurisdiction has an annex or a section that is their own, that calls out their own projects. And so on the next slide, you'll see that there was a community engagement period that was open for about 3 months in 2022. And the county received 243 comments on the plan. And so that engagement was over a number of different avenues. And so many of those comments were from patrons that live within district boundaries. And those comments helped to guide the final project or product, which you're being presented with tonight. And if I can brag for just a second on what was produced, the Oregon Office of Emergency Management, as well as FEMA, have both reviewed and approved this plan. And the State Office of Emergency Management has advised the countywide technical team that I'm a part of that the state would be using this plan as a template for all other plans in the state moving forward. And so we took that as a positive and as a compliment. And then FEMA also approved the plan with absolutely zero comments or concerns. And if any of you have ever dealt with FEMA, that's kind of unheard of when they review emergency plans. So they had absolutely no comments or concerns, thought it looked great, and approved it in a very short period of time. And so on the next slide, you'll see I mentioned all of 17 project areas that were identified by the district's technical team. that are eligible for a number of federal, state, and local grants. Some may also be funded through the normal THPRD budget process, since there is alignment between this plan and our strategic, comprehensive facility functional plans and a number of other plans that the district has. So a few specific high priority action items include engineering studies to guide the seismic and solar upgrades at our Emergency Operations Center, which we've identified as the Fannel Creek Service Center. The evaluation of current irrigation systems to guide water use reduction district-wide. The reductions of fine fuels at the interfaces of residences and natural areas in the district, which reduces fire hazards. And evaluations of all the boilers at the 5 locations that may be designated as warming centers during winter storms. And so again, the full list of THPRD specific action items, those 17 projects, are included in the THPRD annex to this plan. And so the next slide is really what tells our story to our patrons at the end of the day. These are the overarching goals of all natural hazard mitigation plans. And as a proactive, community-based government entity, the district really has a responsibility to its community to pursue these action items. And we will be pursuing them over the next 5 years prior to the next update to the plan. And so as you can see on the next slide, following your questions and comments, staff is requesting that you approve the resolution to adopt this plan. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you might have.
Thank you, Mark, so much. This is so exciting. I scanned the document with just like such excitement and just thinking like, oh my gosh, has Bonamici's team seen this? Like, it's such a great tool for us for federal opportunities, which you've explained already. So I greatly appreciate that. And I feel like today's meeting is sort of a reminder that we're not just parks. We're also resiliency. We're also celebrating our LGBTQIA plus community. Like we think beyond. And I'm so proud of that. And this document is just like, gosh, we're in the big leagues. So thank you, Mark, for all your work on this. Much appreciated. I don't have any questions. I'm excited to adopt this and empower the staff to go after some money that long-term builds resiliency in times of crisis. Folks have any questions? If not, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Well, I'm happy to give the motion, and I am glad we have a seat at the table for these things. Is really good. So I move that the Board of Directors approve resolution number 2023-08, adopting the Washington County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
This is Tia. I'll second.
Perfect. Jessica, will you please take roll?
RD Minor,
Yes.
Heidi Edwards,
Yes.
Alfredo Moreno,
Yes.
Tia Ping,
Yes.
Lisa Montplaco.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. And thank you for acknowledging all the other staff that worked on this project. I appreciate that that's that's a practice here at the organization, so that we know that when we see them, we can say high five, great job. Next up, we have Pointer Road Preferred Concept Plan. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, good evening. I think Tim is on here as well.
Oh, sorry. Hello, Tim.
Right.
It's the last agenda item.
I know.
Sorry.
Everybody's still sleeping. Yes, well, thank you and good evening, board members, and thank you for having us here tonight. I am Tim Bonin, Interim Design Development Manager, along with Nicole Polson, Park Planner, and we are here to present the Future Park at Pointer Road Preferred Concept Plan. Community engagement began back in April 2022 on both the naming and concept plan. And while we are only presenting the concept plan here tonight, we will be back this summer with a recommended name. And matter of fact, Liana Harden, our engagement and partnership specialist, is presenting naming options to the local NAC meeting tomorrow night. So we will have more to come on that this summer. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nicole and we will start the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Tim. I haven't been to the board in so long, and I'm excited I got to come last month and this month. So thanks for letting me be here this evening to present the future park at Pointer Road. Again, I'm Nicole Paulson, park planner here at the district. Jessica, if you could switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the future neighborhood park at Southwest Pointer Road is located in the northeast quadrant of the district. It's just south of Highway 26 near the Sylvan Canyon Road exit area. If you're familiar there on Highway 26, it's just south of that. The inner ring that you see represents a half-mile radius or roughly a 10-minute walk, while the outer ring represents the 1-mile radius or a 15 to 20-minute walk. And within that 1-mile radius, there are several schools, including West Sylvan Middle School, Ridgewood Elementary School. There are parks, trails, and local restaurants. The site is surrounded by some large pedestrian barriers, which include Highway 26 to the north, Walker Road to the west, and Canyon Road to the south. There is also a major pedestrian route that runs along Pointer Road on the front of the site, and it runs all the way to the west to Ridgewood Park, as well as further on to the Sunset Transit Center. You might be familiar with this pathway if you are on Highway 26 driving into Portland. It would be on your right-hand side. It's the pathway that you see that runs parallel on Highway 26. That particular pathway runs or has a pedestrian corridor that runs from our Ridgewood Park site to our new future park at Pointer Road. So if that provides some context for you. The area is identified as needing more services, and so we're excited to bring a new park opportunity to this area. Next slide, please. Here is a close-up aerial of the site. The future park is approximately 2 acres. It's got a scattering of trees throughout the site. A single-family home used to sit on the property and was removed some time ago. This aerial view highlights its unique characteristics and its quirky shape. The main entry is along Pointer Road, which is on the north side of the site. And then there is an access site off of Canyon Lane, which is on the south, that kind of very thin parcel of land that you see connecting to Canyon Lane. And it is nestled quaintly among quite a few homes in the area. So we are excited to bring some amenities into the surrounding site. Next slide, please. So as Tim mentioned, we started the community engagement phase just over a year ago. And throughout this community engagement phase, staff engaged over 300 community members, including neighbors, families, kids, teens, all ages, with workshops, surveys, and it will help guide us in our future plan. We also offered community surveys and recordings of meetings for neighbors who couldn't make any of our events. This input helped guide the drafting of today's preferred concept plan that you will see. And their partners included Portland Public Schools, with West Sylvan Middle School being the closest in proximity. That is a Portland Public School, as well as West Slope NAC we've worked really closely with, and the City of Beaverton. All promotional material, including surveys, virtual meetings, and workshops, were translated in Spanish or had translators in attendance at those events. Next slide, please. So to develop the preliminary concept plan, we had a lot of fun in April, celebrating the park and enjoying it was dry, but it was soggy, it was very wet, coffee date with our community where we brought in coffee and treats. A little over 150 people attended the event, which we thought was a fabulous attendance for a quaint little area. And the purpose of that event was to gain an understanding of what type of activities the community would like to see in the area, what type of theme they'd be interested in, and how the space might be used for the community. And the graphic that you see here really highlights what we heard. The community was very excited about opportunities to gather with friends and family, have play opportunities, as well as places to relax, rest, meditate. Amenities and comforts we heard were to have open lawn space, shaded space with trees or shelters, pathways, and connectivity, as well as nature and water play. And these activities and amenities were largely consistent with the request to have a more natural theme to the park, including pollinators, birds, plants, flowers, gardens. And the next slide will show how we incorporated the community feedback. So with the information that we received and gathered from that first workshop, as well as the online survey, our consultant created 3 bubble diagrams to illustrate the various activities on the site for our second workshop. And the 3 layouts were presented via survey and at our Parktober event, where we hosted a carnival atmosphere with games and crafts. So combined with the feedback from our survey for this event, as well as the tabling at the workshop, option C, which is identified in the blue dashed line, was the most preferred option, and it did have the most opportunities for play. And so on the next slide, we'll see how we tied all this information together into one preferred plan. So we moved forward with balancing the community's desires to have a variety of amenities and play while keeping the site natural in theme and relaxing and restful, as well as the feedback that we heard from our internal design team, which includes our natural resources, our programming staff, our maintenance staff, risk and safety. We also considered site considerations, which include slope, health of existing trees, the access on Pointer Road will be the main park entrance with the small pedestrian access to the south on Canyon Lane. The street frontage, Pointer Road is utilized as a major bike ped route on the City of Beaverton's active transportation plan, and therefore there is no street parking on that particular roadway. There isn't parking on Canyon Lane as well. So neighborhood parks typically don't have parking included in the design. This site is a bit unique because Pointer Road and Canyon Lane don't have any on-street parking. And so to allow persons experiencing disabilities to access the site, this particular design includes an ADA parking space, as shown in the enlarged area on the right-hand side of the screen, right at that park entry. And there will be also a designated parking space for maintenance to access the site and provide services weekly. So I know this is a really small kind of portrait plan. So on the next few slides, we'll go into a little bit more detail about what is actually shown and what amenities we were able to include in the park. Thank you, Jessica. So our concept plan includes both hard surface and soft surface trails. Trail will provide access from the site from the north and the south entry points, plus some internal looped trails. And all hard surfaces will be paved and soft surfaces will be compacted gravel. We did hear a lot of excitement about scooter and bike riding. So loop paths always, I know, gain a lot of praise when we do build those. Next slide, please. And just as we were hearing Bruce talk about the climate plan, my apologies, that's the next slide. This slide is our gleaning garden. So our concept plan here also shows a gleaning garden as you enter in the space, shown in the blue dashed circle. And the gleaning garden is a design with edible landscaping such as blueberries, raspberries, fruiting trees, where people can enjoy fruit while playing in the park. Next slide, Jessica. Here is our shelter and shade opportunities. This is consistent with Bruce's climate action plan as well, and hearing feedback that we received from the community. Shelter and shade opportunities were really important to the community, and picnic areas were also popular in our feedback. So our concept plan does include a picnic shelter. Shelters will help provide rest, shade, and gathering. Some mature trees on the site will remain, where we will try to position picnic tables, benches, or other seating opportunities around them to capture kind of that already existing mature shade that we have on site. Next slide, please, Jessica. We also heard a lot about water. And so our concept does include a small water play area. And the water opportunities here, while they might not be the big grandiose splash pads that we maybe think about at Conestoga, this one would include a pump or flowing water source for play, maybe similar to what you've seen at Gabriel Park if you've been there, or Orenco Woods. Also, Pirate Park has a nice pump feature, and I believe La Raiz is also going to include maybe a similar type water feature. Next slide, please. So our plan here also includes areas for traditional play, such as swings, slides, play structures, and we, staff, will have another public meeting or survey or comment period in the near future to help the community guide us and select preferred play equipment, theme, colors, etc. Next slide, please. We are also including with our nature theme, kind of our natural area opportunities for nature play or nature exploration. That could be logs, stumps, rocks, loose building material for kids to play with. Recuerdo Park has a great landscape transition plan, while they've got landscape boulders as well, kind of sitting areas near the creek. Those are good opportunities. Roger Tilbury is a great example as well. So we'll look to incorporate different types of nature play or exploration areas within the site. Next slide. And we also have a nice sized lawn area. It will be a flexible space for a variety of sports, relaxing, or picnicking. I love that there's a loop path around that lawn area to allow for multi-uses. I know, if kids are scootering, other kids can be running or playing in the lawn. So that will be a nice addition for the park site. Next slide, please. So our project is currently within budget, and once the preferred concept plan is approved, the park would move through our permitting process, land use, construction permitting, and with the anticipation of construction happening in summer of 2025. So this concludes my presentation. Staff are seeking today's Board of Directors approval for the preferred concept plan for Pointer Road Park, or for the future park at Pointer Road. And I am excited to hear any feedback or comments or questions that you might have for me.
Thank you very much. I'm excited. Tia?
Yes, thanks. This park is awesome and it has so much potential, and I'm super excited for it. I love the trails. Like, besides my 4 season that I always push for trails around a playground, because then parents are forced to kind of continue walking while their kids are playing, so they don't just have to sit there, but they're in eyes view while they're doing something for themselves. So that's wonderful. I wanted to check for those soft trails. Are those ADA compliant at all? Like, are those rated for wheelchairs and all of those kinds of things to go over? Or do we know where those soft trails were, where maybe there's other ways around them?
Yeah, that's a great question. The soft surface trails will largely be around the play area. So on the east side of the play areas that you see. So within maybe the within the nature play area, as well as around the larger traditional play area. The main pathway running down the middle will be a hard surface trail.
Okay.
And there may possibly be a soft surface trail up in the gleaning area. It would be a compacted gravel, which we understand from is an appropriate surface for persons experiencing disabilities.
Okay. And so if it's that main middle trail, that's going to be like the ADA compliant hard trail, then do we have planned somewhere for them? Like, if a parent of a child, or of a parent with disabilities has a child who's bringing them there, will they have a place to, like, just stay parked safely and within view and, not, yeah.
Yes, that's a great question. There will be opportunities and we will refine that as we move through the design period. There are benches stationed all around, and often our typical detail that we're looking at now is to provide a bench and a safe space for anybody that may be in a wheelchair or maybe in a mobility device, so that they could be in proximity and view as well, and not in the middle of a pathway.
Okay, perfect. And then, I just want to make sure, since this, I feel like this park could be like I know it's not, it's a neighborhood park, but I feel like with the amenities that we're planning for, it would definitely be a community destination park for a lot of the surrounding areas, especially since, within that map of the 1 mile thing. But so I just want to make sure that if we have a requirement for those playground equipments, that it requires an ADA accessible options and different neurodiverse equipment that maybe we don't necessarily, that's not the same as something that we always have wherever we go, that suffices those things. So as we plan for it, I would love to make sure we consider those populations and make sure that we are requiring those to be here and having some sort of variety from the other things that we have in our other existing parks. And those were the only questions I had. Thank you for my loop around trail. I love it.
Absolutely.
It would be
Thank you for
helpful
your feedback.
if there was a cover over one of the sections for for future. But
Then
I
might
will
put
just
it
keep
over
saying that.
budget.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you,
gonna keep
Tia.
saying it. Yep.
Yeah, no, please do. It's great. Heidi?
Yeah, this is very exciting and exciting to see us go into that quadrant and really provide some more service over there. Curious, I know that we engage with the NAC and we have public notification of these things happening. I'm curious because it looks like we have some residences but right up to the park. Do we do specific outreach with those specific residences, or is it if they want to participate? I'm just curious because seeing how it's adjacent to their properties. Do you know what we do with those properties? Do we do outreach, like specific outreach, or is it just really public notification and the NAC?
It's a great question. Oftentimes it happens really organically when we are working on a site that has a lot of homes that are in close proximity and adjacency. It does happen organically. In this particular case, we have been additionally over communicating with a lot of these neighbors. So I actually just met with 5 of the neighbors a couple of weeks ago on site. I've met multiple times on site just to go over questions they might have. We're on a very good communication basis, and we do meet with them pretty regularly in this particular case.
I'm really happy to hear that. And I'm glad, it's just a handful, but I want to also be respectful of their property and space and the noise or commotion or, whatever may be going on. Is there anything that those property owners have had concerns about, or that has sort of changed our plan a little bit or added to what we need to consider? And I'm putting you on the spot right here, so if that needs to come back later, that's fine.
No,
Go ahead.
yeah. Oh, it's a great question. I think we have heard. This is a very established neighborhood, and so we were able to find out from the community a lot of really great patterns of behavior that are happening in the neighborhood, and that has helped us refine our plan to encourage new use and help shape existing use. One of those examples is making sure people were very passionate about and making sure there was jug filler stations because it is a pedestrian route and bicyclists use it as a transportation route. They wanted to make sure there was a nice space for people to be able to quickly fill up their bottles of water to ensure that they can continue moving to where their destination might be. There are particular questions. Some areas are private drives, and so they just want to make sure on how the patterns are going to look and how we might develop the site to either encourage or limit anybody maybe trying to go in a private drive. So those have been really great conversations. Additionally, making sure that we have really good pedestrian striping and signage on the south side as well, because that canyon lane access is pretty narrow. So those are just a few of the things and ways that we've been able to kind of refine the design to help it and make it better. And I think it's going to be overall really great in the end for all the users as well as the adjacent homeowners.
Yeah, I
Thank
might
you,
add.
Nicole. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
if I could add as well, Nicole is very diplomatic. I think I've heard that comment about her very recently. The fact of the matter is this is a pretty complicated site. It definitely had, it's a long holding for the Park District. It has very active immediate neighbors in this case. And yet at the same time, the end result of what Tim and Nicole have accomplished here is a tight perspective from some to opening up the conversation much larger to getting greater distances of engagement by all parties, respecting the very local concerns. Specifically, some of these easement overlaps are very complicated, and yet we didn't stop. We had a lot of reasons to slow down and pull back, but we kept moving to broaden the conversation, enable use, because this is an opportunity. This is definitely well within our grasp analysis of we need a park community. So it's impressive to see how staff manage that process. And yes,
well, thank you,
diplomatic.
Nicole. Thank you, Nicole and Tim, for all your work and diplomacy. And thank you to the neighbors and the surrounding community for, having us move forward with this. It's a very exciting opportunity. Appreciate it.
Tia?
Sorry, I had one more question. For that middle center pedestrian pathway, do you know generally how wide that's going to be?
Typically, I believe our parks functional plan indicates that pathways within a park system are 6 feet wide. So that would be the minimum.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And then my only concern is when I'm looking at this picture of like between 20 near 26 and Canyon, and I feel not, and I don't know for sure, but I feel like this is a very going to be maybe a pretty highly utilized connection point to get from point A through all the way down point B, because I don't see very many roads like crossing all the way through like that to Canyon. So I wasn't sure if we have to, and you mentioned, like the scooters and bikes and all that kind of stuff. Do we need to worry about it being so close to the playground? And that center one, which I think is going to be the most heavily used probably since it's going right through the center and is the straight connection from point A to point B throughout the park. I just worry about like little kids, playing on the playground, running around, and then like teens or anybody, or even just like a person trying to get to work or something, or coming home from work, just zooming through and having that path so close to the playground. So I wasn't sure if 6 feet is enough, or what the easement is, or if there's a regulation from how far the playground is away from the trail that likely will be heavily used.
It's a really great question, especially because there are some major pedestrian corridors within that area. The really great thing is on that vicinity map or even on an aerial, it's really hard to recognize that the streets don't go through, or it's very easy to recognize that the streets don't go through. The really interesting thing about that particular neighborhood is there are very small pedestrian connections that go through those. So while the street doesn't go through, there are pedestrian cut-throughs, which will likely limit any type of need for this north-south cut through on our particular site.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it would likely be an east-west along Pointer Road.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
Great questions though, because we vetted that out as well early on.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Thank you.
Attention to detail, Tia. Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? This is awesome. It's beautiful. I love this whole like new trend of gleaning. It's great. Thank you, everybody. Would someone like to make a motion?
Absolutely. Barbie here, and I move that the Board of Directors approve the preferred concept plan for the future park at Pointer Road.
Do you have a second?
This is Tia. I'll second.
Thank you. Jessica, will you please take roll?
Alfredo Moreno,
Yes.
Heidi Edwards,
Yes.
Tia Ping,
Yes.
Barbie Minor,
Yes.
Lisa Monteblanco.
Yes. With that, all of our agenda items are complete. Cheers to Heidi and her tenure and her leadership, and it was fun to get to honor her. I know summer is super busy for everyone, so the board is taking the July board meeting off. In August, we'll have our next board meeting, and we'll have a new member. I know staff is probably already exhausted from the start of summer. Really appreciate their leadership and all their hard work. Summer, I know, is go time for all of you. So thank you for all that you do. Stay safe, stay in the shade, drink water, and have lovely summers. And see most of you in August. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.